In this video, we're going to show you how to install the thermostat and housing on your Dodge Charger located on the front side of the engine. I'm going to start by pulling off the upper engine cover. Just gently pull upward, releasing the rubber grommets from the studs underneath, and set that aside. Just in front of the throttle body here, you're going to locate the temp sensor right here. You're going to locate the little pinch tab, and you want to press on that and disconnect it from the sensor. So there's a little pinch tab right there. You're going to press on and release that. Using an 8mm socket or a flathead screwdriver, go ahead and loosen the clamp holding the intake to the throttle body. Now we're just going to loosen that clamp. Do not go all the way and disconnect it. And we're going to do the same over here by the air filter box. Loosen this clamp. Loosen it, don't unscrew it to the point where it comes undone. Now I want to go ahead and separate the air intake tube from the box here. So just grab that, wiggle it off. Now we can go ahead and remove the whole intake area here. Gently pull upward and then wiggle that off. You're separating the rubber boot here from the throttle body and set that aside. Now we have two different ways to start this project. One, you can go ahead and drain the coolant through the radiator area first. Or what we're going to do is we put a catch can or a bucket underneath so that way then when we remove our thermostat housing here with the thermostat, coolant's just going to drain down. Now we did put the bucket underneath, and we're going to go ahead and remove our belt. We want to go ahead and remove our serpentine belt. We're just going to use our 3/8 ratchet, pop it into our tensioner, take the tension off, and pull that belt off. The reason why we're doing this here is that when we do let that coolant run out from the thermostat housing, we don't want to soak or saturate that belt with antifreeze. So it's easier just to go ahead and pop that right off. So we always recommend doing a schematic for the belt that you're removing. So on the bottom we have a harmonic balancer. The belt runs around that, comes into our tensioner that we just released the tension on, comes around to the alternator, comes up and goes over an idler pulley, over to the AC, runs around to the water pump, and then back down. That way we know the pattern or the routing of the belt when we go to reinstall that. Go ahead and pull your belt off. Now is also a good time to go ahead and inspect that belt. Go ahead and fold it over and roll it and look for any splits or cracks in that rubber belt. If it is split, cracked, or anything like that, go ahead and replace it. Ours looks like it's in good shape, so we're going to reinstall ours. Next thing we want to do is we're going to use our pliers to go ahead and pull back on the upper radiator hose clamp here, and then we're going to slide this off slowly and let that coolant run out. I'm going to go ahead and compress that and slide this back. We do have a catch can there, so let that out. Now the difference in doing this compared to draining out the radiator is that there's a lot more coolant that's going to be lost there. We're only going to lose a certain portion of this coolant, basically from the thermostat housing up. Take that hose, I'm just going to flex that over here. Now with that disconnected, we can now go ahead and loosen and remove the two 10mm bolts holding the thermostat housing. Okay, just going to break that one loose and just straight down, roughly about 6 o'clock is a second. Now with those loose, I'm just going to use my socket and I'm going to spin that out by hand. Now we're going to lose some more coolant from this here as well, so it's something you just want to pay attention to, be aware of it. There is a rubber O-ring there, sealing the housing to the port. So now as we peel this out, you can actually see the O-ring here that's separating. So there's our thermostat and housing. We're going to go ahead and set that aside, and let's go ahead and remove the gasket. I'm going to use a rag and just wipe down the surface here. Now we have our new thermostat and the housing as well as the gasket. And you just want to work your finger around the gasket, make sure it's fully seated. Go ahead and line that up. Now I'm going to go ahead and start the upper bolt. Set that in a few threads. Go ahead and get the lower one started. I like to thread these in as far as you can by hand. It's pretty easy going in. So just run that down. Do the same for the top. It'll take you a few seconds. At this point here, we can go ahead and torque these down. We can torque these down to 9 foot-pounds. Once you have that torqued down, we're now simply going to take a spray solvent and just clean down our pulleys and the front portion of the engine. It'll be pretty easy to do. This is not only cleaning off the residual coolant, but it is taking away some of the debris and cleaning up the front of the engine. Want to let that dry. Now, if you want to, after you spray it on the front of the engine, I'm just going to use some towels here and wipe down the front tray, this splash shield down below. Now, to remove this clamp here on the hose, you can use a pair of pliers or you can use a hose clamp tool, as you can see that we're using here. Go ahead and take your upper radiator hose, slide that down. Now, there's a little bump out here or a tab on the thermostat housing. Go ahead and make sure that hose is right up against that. We can slide our clamp back into position. So go ahead and get your clamp lined up. And just give it a little wiggle. You also want to inspect the hose as well too. See if it's dry rot or if it's swollen or blown up around the area where just before the clamp. Definitely it shows signs that the hose itself can be weak. You want to go ahead and replace it at this time. Ours is in good shape, so we decided to use that again. Go ahead and install your belt. So what I'm doing here is I have the belt run around everything except for the water pump pulley, and it's halfway off of my harmonic balancer. I'll pretty much put it around that. That's going to allow me to get my tool or my ratchet on the tensioner, and when I lift up on this, I can pull up on the slack and slide the belt over the water pump pulley because it's a nice smooth face on there and it does not have ribs on the back side of the belt. Then I can go ahead and release that tensioner. At this point here, you need to go around each pulley and make sure that with the ribs facing down or around the pulley, make sure that it's fully seated. You don't want it to be off a rib anywhere. Make sure it's fully seated on the harmonic balancer. If it is, go ahead and loosen that tensioner again and then realign the belt and make sure that is lined up. At this point here, we can go ahead and assemble the components on the top side of the engine, and then we'll top off our coolant. Let's go ahead and install our air intake. You want to make sure that the rubber gasket around here is fully seated onto the intake unit. And then over here, there's a leg that comes down. There's a rubber grommet that fits into a stud down below. So let's go ahead and wiggle this onto the throttle body and then line up that grommet and push that down into place. While we're here, we can go ahead and install our sensor connector right here. Line that up, push it on. You're going to feel it in here, it snap into place. Let's go to the other end by the air filter box, line this up, work this into place. Let's go ahead and snug down our hose clamps. Just snug that down gently, and then back to the throttle body side. Go ahead and do the same over here. Go ahead, snug that down. Give that a little wiggle, make sure it's nice and secure. Install the engine cover. You want to make sure that all the rubber grommets are installed before popping this on to the top. If they're not on the cover, they're probably still on top of the engine. You want to go ahead and locate those, pop them back into the lid, and then get this into place. I like to reach underneath the lid, locate the grommets, then lower this down, push it down. You can feel all four of them pop into place. Now, we only calculated roughly about half to 3/4 of a cup of coolant that we lost. What you want to do is, if you want to add some more, make sure, obviously the engine will be cool. You're going to counterclockwise turn the expansion tank cap, open this up, and you're going to add roughly about a half to 3/4 of a cup of that antifreeze, and then go ahead and re-secure this. Make sure that the cap is locked all the way to the far right so it won't turn anymore. Go ahead and start up the vehicle, and then you can go for a road test at this point here. Come on back and then check the coolant level here. Never open this up when the engine is hot, but at that point you can just check the level on the expansion tank. And if everything checks out okay, then you're good to go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.